You are listening to the Mastering Business Basics podcast, where we discuss how to build a solid foundation under your small business to improve your chances of success. And now, here is your host, Roger Pearson.
Welcome to episode 1 of Mastering Business Basics, the podcast. This podcast is dedicated to all of the small business owners in the United States, and our mission is to help you learn the foundational aspects of properly building a business. This starts with the 3 pillars that every business person needs to learn, involving the legal, logistical, and tax considerations of operating a small business. You know, the boring stuff, but the stuff that will give you an advantage when times get tough. We also like to talk about some subjects that'll make you think, that'll examine yourself, that'll put you in the best frame of mind to build a proper business. Now, I don't intend to discuss all of the sexy marketing strategies or super systems you may hear about out there. There's plenty of other people that would be glad to sell you their awesome methods, which is based on their skills, not yours, and we'll get into that in a later episode. But today I want to start with discussing why you may want to spend your precious time listening to this podcast. I've spent 55 years running my own businesses or managing businesses for others, and for the last 23 years, I've also been working with small businesses to teach them how to structure their businesses, reduce their tax liabilities, and increase their profits. And over those 55 years, I've certainly made my share of mistakes. After all, the schools don't really teach you how to run a business. I didn't have a mentor that would take me under their wing. And like so many business people in this country, I just saw a way to make some money and pay the bills and ran with it. And now, nearing 3/4 of a century of life, I've learned probably what is the most important lesson of life. It doesn't matter how much money you make or how successful you are in your life. In the end, what really matters is how many people's lives you've improved along the way. There really is no better feeling than seeing someone succeed because of the education and support you were able to provide them. And that's my mission, to impart the nuts and bolts of the business world, to make you stop and think about how you're trying to build your business, to help you avoid so many of the mistakes I've made and seen other people make. That mission has taken me to learn how to be an author, a podcaster, and a course creator, a journey that will provide me with a purpose for the rest of my life. I'd like to start this podcast with what is probably the most important thing that you need to find: your why. If you read the literature of the most successful people in the business world, they all talk about finding your why. It's not about becoming a millionaire. That's just a scorecard. It's not about becoming famous. That tends to just feed the ego. Your why can't be about you. Your why has to be something outside of yourself. I really didn't understand that until the last few years. I've always thought that it was about setting goals and reaching them, but what I've learned is that your why needs to be something that will improve the lives around you. To some, that may be improving the lives of their family. To others, it might be supporting their favorite cause or charity. But always, your why should help make the world a better place to live in for those you interact with. Which brings me to this week's story. I'd like to briefly tell you about my journey through the world of business and how I arrived at my why. It certainly has a lot of twists and turns, and really started when I was a senior in high school. I decided I wanted to be a teacher. So I went to a teacher's college, which is now called the University of Northern Colorado. And except for the part about cleaning chemistry labs to make living expenses, things were going along fine until I started to do student teaching at the beginning of my second year. I then saw how the actual public school system worked. This was the beginning of the 70s, and they were teaching how 2 and 2 became 5, and they threw out phonics. They didn't think that was a good way to teach people how to read, which they were wrong. School boards were dictating which books you could teach from, and you could not deviate from that. Well, I knew that was nonsense, and if I tried to work with the public school system, I'd probably get myself fired every year. So it was time to leave college and start a different path. The problem is I had no clue what to do, but there was something inside of me that drew me to owning or managing a business. So for the rest of my life, I've charted that course, sometimes owning my own and many times managing others. I spent many years finding out what I don't like. I started a small lawn care business and did very good quality work, but didn't really enjoy it in those 100-degree Nebraska summers. I tried my hand at landscape design. I really enjoyed that, and I even sold a few landscape designs. I was very proud of that. But I realized that to become really successful from a business standpoint, that'd mean going back to school to learn some engineering and horticulture. And I decided that wasn't going to happen, so it was time to move on from that. Many years later, in another state, I decided to start a custodial business cleaning restaurants overnight. This was the first time I had to hire employees for my own business, and soon found out that was something I was not good at. Still am not. I got tired of filling in when somebody did not show up for work, so I sold the equipment and accounts and moved on. Then there was over the dozen, I actually lost count of how many, multi-level marketing companies I tried over 30 years. Then somebody showed me how most of them were set up to make the founders money with everybody else holding the bag. There is a reason most don't last over 5 years, and they don't publish their statistics because the real failure rates of the people joining them is over 95%. I just regret it took me so long to learn this lesson and I wasted so much time on it. Then there were the management jobs. I spent 10 years in the restaurant business working everything from line cook to general manager. I spent 4 years in the supermarket business, for everything from cashier to an assistant manager. Then there was the 4 years in the computer business managing a retail store. I followed that up working for myself, doing network support, doing some website design, and really didn't care for that either. Things just changed too fast and I couldn't keep up. And that wasn't really enjoyable. So I moved on. This brought me to the 1990s and I moved to Florida. I took a different track back into management for other people. I got a job doing OS2 support for IBM and gradually moved up to middle management. I was even teaching software classes to the support technicians because I love teaching. Then after 3 years, I was called into the manager's office and told that my position was being eliminated along with all the managers on my level. Yeah. Thank you very much. So I went on and got a manager's job at a document management company and built a new division for them, scanning documents. I grew it from 2 employees that they had there when I walked in to 25 with dozens of clients. And 3 years later, a new comptroller came in and replaced all the management positions with his own people. So I was out on the street again. Then I went and found a document management software startup and got a top management job with them, only to find a couple of years later, the president was taking the investors' money and paying off his own debts. And when the investors found out, they said, no, we're not giving you any more money. And they closed the company. Well, the 90s were known as the decade of downsizing, and it certainly kept downsizing me. At that point, I frankly did not know what direction to go. Thankfully, my sister-in-law suggested I go take this tax preparation class. She'd been doing it part-time during tax season for quite a few years and suggested that at least I can make some money working during tax season until I figured things out. So I did. Because of my background, I specialized in doing business returns, and I found out something very interesting. I actually enjoyed helping people straighten out their taxes and teaching them how to properly set up their businesses to save money. And now here I am, about to go into my 24th tax season. And I've enjoyed, for the most part, working with thousands of people and hundreds of businesses during this time. I even spent a decade teaching tax classes. The last 3 years, having defined my continuing mission, I began to transition the way that I can help improve people's lives. I wanted a way to help more people than I could just sitting at a tax desk. I mean, after all, there's just so many hours in a week that you can work and so many people that you can see. So I developed a 3-way approach, taking into account that some people learn by reading, some by listening, and some by viewing. For those that like to read, I just published my first book entitled Mastering Business Basics, the Legal, Logistical, and Tax Considerations of Starting a Small Business. And for those that like to listen, I've created this podcast to pass on all the lessons I've learned and help you make sense of your journey. And for those who like to watch, I'm putting the finishing touches on a college-level online course and the support options for those who wish a hands-on support system. I'm doing all of these things so that no matter what avenue of learning you're most comfortable with, it's going to be available. No matter what avenue of support you need, I can help you find it. That is my why. I hope you'll consider spending a few episodes with me and let me know what you've learned or what you need to learn. I'll be listening. If you'd like the links to all I have to offer, you'll find them at my corporate website, seagulltechnologies.com. Until next week.
You have been listening to the Mastering Basics podcast with your host, Roger Pearson. For more information about all of the business education options that are available, we invite you to visit seagulltechnologies.com and continue your journey.